Hey guys, True Grit Scott. Working on, it's not chainsaws today, but I'm hoping this might help somebody with one of these AGT LRT23 little Chinese mini skids. We wound up getting this month or 2 months ago on a trade. So we got a little bit of nothing into it, and we got 9 hours on it. And we weren't sure if we were going to keep it even. So we didn't jump right in and start doing things on it. Let's run it, see if it's worth keeping around. And to be honest with you, we like it pretty well. There's a bunch of things we like about it, a few things that we don't, but it's a handy little unit. So we're on the 9-hour mark, and hell, let's get some fluids changed in it. Let's do the hydraulic fluid. Let's do the oil. Let's give it a good look. And as I'm doing it, I'm running into a few things that have probably been discussed on Facebook in the Chinese mini skid group, but I figured I'd go through them to maybe try to just show you a quick video of some of that stuff. We do chainsaws. We do Chinese chainsaws, clone chainsaws, fix OEM saws, so we're big into saws, and we got a bunch of videos on that kind of stuff. So this is a first, and I'm not going to tell you I'm any kind of expert with this machine. These are just the things, being someone who wrenches, that I'm noticing on it. So I'm going to pause you guys real quick, and I'm going to zoom you in on a few different things. Okay guys, first things first. This is the Wix oil filter that I wound up getting. I know some people refer to it by a different 2-letter beginning, but it appears to be the same filter. Not totally hip on these filters, but when I compared it to the stock one, it looked exactly the same with different printing on the side. Maybe the insides are different. I had intended on putting on one of these hoses for the oil drain, and it's kind of hard to see in here, but your oil drains, like all these motors, you know, you got a little plug down in there that you're probably not going to be able to see. Let me see if I get something pointy. There you go. And that was what was it, 12 millimeter to get that off. I just used a socket on an extension, but as I'm looking at this tube, first off, I don't know that it's the best tube made, and maybe there's better ones, but the problem that I had is this was a 17 millimeter nut to tighten it down, and I had a heck of a time trying to get a 17 millimeter wrench hitting that floor on the bottom. And then I got to thinking a little more. I've never had a problem with a metal plug, whereas a tube hanging down, maybe I'm gonna run into a problem, maybe I'm not. So I backed right out of that. And what I wound up doing was using the fluid extractor through the dipstick. And here's a frustrating point on these. Hopefully you see the yellow in there, in through the hole. That's the dipstick. But you gotta try to get your big hand through this little hole and do about a 90-degree bend to get it in and out. It's a horrible setup that, you know, if this hole, even if you didn't make it bigger for a man's hand to fit in, if you slid it over, I don't know, 3 inches, 4 inches, you'd line up with it. So I guess. I think the reason they did this is on this valve cover here is where your fill is, right here. Coming in from the side, that hole doesn't give you a lot of angle to get oil going down. So what I did was I took, one of these funnels, put it in the top like that, and that worked a lot nicer because it sat in there. I was able to dump the oil in. It looked to me like it took 2 quarts. You know, after I run it, maybe it'll be a little low, maybe it'll need more. I don't think that I overfilled it. I did wind up pulling that plug out of the bottom, and I did get oil all over, but it was, 3 ounces of oil at that point because I had sucked it out with the extractor through the dipstick tube. Right now, I'm running the extractor on the hydraulic fluid. Now, what was frustrating about that is it's got the built-in screen to the filler, so you just can't pop that screen out. So there's a bunch of, I think they were 3 millimeter hex screws. You see them sitting there on the battery. Pulled them out, pulled the whole screen out, not a big deal. what was also remarkable about this is one of the problems we had early on with this machine was the tracks coming off. You know, day one it didn't happen, but after a couple days, these tracks were coming off constantly. I mean, you couldn't go 20 feet without, you know, losing a track, and you'd feel it go bump, and you'd stop what you're doing and spin it backwards, kick the tracks back on. You can do that. So we wound up figuring out how to tighten it, and this is a 2025 model. So the adjustment's a little bit different. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get you in there to see it. Yeah, I guess you can. It's pretty much, well, a lock nut holding the, man, I wish I could show you that better. It's a lock nut holding the threaded rod, and then you turn it to tighten them. We tightened the heck out of them. It made it better, but they were still popping off. What that turned out to be, the drive motors that you can see in there, it was focused for a second. I'll get that out of the way. You know, let me get a pointy thing. So, those nuts back there around your drive motor, you can put your hands on the drive motor. You could grab the sprocket and shake it, and you're just saying, hey, that's not loose. Well, put a wrench on those nuts. They're loose. So they were all, and I'm not talking about loosey-goosey loose, I'm talking they were a little loose. And that little bit of play in them, which I'm telling you, it didn't seem like any play, but it obviously was why those tracks were popping off so frequently. So we tightened those up. The bolts were a little bit strippy from being a little bit loose, or maybe when they put them on. Tightening them up helped. I gotta pull one of them back out, measure it so I could buy all new bolts, redo them. I did Loctite them when I did them. Maybe it's good now, maybe it's not. Maybe these aren't the best tracks in the world, but they're staying on a heck of a lot better once we cinched them down real good. The other big frustration point, that oil filter. Let me see if I can lean over here and not fall in the machine. You know, you can see the oil filter back there. That had to have been tightened with an impact wrench. I don't see a lot of filters that tight, so I had to grab a oil filter wrench, and I struggled to get that off of there. I thought I was gonna break something, damage something. It was a bad scene getting that off of there. Finally got it off, cleaned it up. The new one's spun on there now. Also, those motor mount bolts, every one of those was loose, loosey-goosey loose. They needed to be tightened right down, and I don't know if I should pull them back out, Loctite them, and put them down so that they don't move again. I'll figure that out. What else did I want to tell you guys on this? I don't know how much hydraulic fluid I'm going to get out of there. What's that say? 6.8 liters? I don't know. So I'm going to be running that for a while. I got to empty that out already. So we got oil filter, that. I don't know what else to tell you. When we got this, it came with the forks and the bucket. I don't think we have $2 grand into the machine. It seems worth every penny. Oh, this hinge was auto broke from day one. Has a little crack in it, probably a casting flaw. I'm going to see if I could braze that back together to make that nice again. What else? We got the hydraulic fluid. I just used Napa 1030, and on the hydraulic fluid, it's just Napa 46 hydraulic fluid. I'm not going nuts on a Chinese machine with the most expensive fluids I could find. We run that stuff in other equipment, and it's hydraulic fluid. It's fine. I don't think Napa's going to rip me off on that. There was something else. Let me think. Let me pause you while I think of what it was. Okay, you guys may all know this, but I've seen people do all different creative things for weight on the back here. I have a buddy who owns a tree service, and he's running this same machine, but it's a 2024, and you can tell because the way the tracks adjust is different. He's got some kind of grease fitting set up, and he's been happy with it. So what he wound up doing to get weight on the back of it is he went to the scrapyard, got 1-inch plate steel, and I think he got a 1-inch in it, maybe a 1/2-inch plate steel. Cut them out in the rough shape of this, you know, standing platform on the back. Tack welded them on there pretty good, and I think he told me he has about 300 pounds on the back of it, and the machine does more than he ever expected it to. I know that my kid and I have been standing on the back of this at times and making it go, just not enough weight in the back, but from what I understand, that made all the difference in the world, and it's a pretty elegant solution just to have weight sitting right there that you stand on. I think that's it with this. The hydraulic fluid, that, and again, I'm not an expert on this, guys. Maybe there was a higher quality tube I could have bought, but I'm still not going to trust a rubber tube, especially with it vibrating loose when I know I've never had a plug vibrate loose. I think that this machine is set up that changing fluids, you really might want to get an extractor. That's a little Mighty Vac extractor. I've had it for every bit of 20 years, and I'm happy with it, but I think Harbor's Freight sells a cheaper knockoff. Draining that fluid out, somebody probably showed you already, but on the far side, and it looks like, if you see the little wire coming to it and sticking out, that looks like drain plug to me, and maybe a low fluid alarm built into it. And I don't know where you're going to put that fluid because there's no hole in the bottom, and you're going to make a mess. So I would tell you, a fluid extractor is almost a must. When we do the next oil change, it'll be with the fluid extractor. The hose might have been easier to drop it straight down into a pan, but I can't get over the rubber hose setup. And for the hydraulic fluid, there's just, I don't know what the solution would be other than draining it in there and making a mess. So we'll use the fluid extractor. Let me pause you guys. Okay guys, I hope that helps somebody. Here's actually the original filter, and you know, it looked like the inside was a little different on the wicks, you know, different color internal gasket, but as far as shape, I think I saw folks say that this has to be dished down, and maybe there's some filters that almost fit, but they're dished up and they won't mate correctly. But I got the wick filter, I think it was 17 bucks, whatever. A little expensive for a little crappy filter, but I'm not going to complain too much. Anyhow, guys, I'm a saw guy. This machine's new to us. Those are just some of the things that I've seen. We're going to play with it a little bit more, see how it goes. I don't know. So far, we're happy with it. We got to find something. Maybe we want to find better tracks, and if we could even get, I've heard of people putting wider tracks on these. Maybe. So I accidentally, not accidentally, I did it on purpose, looked on Facebook, and I looked on tracks, and maybe I Googled tracks real quick, not getting deep into it. So now I get 500,000 Facebook ads for mini skid tracks, and it looks like everybody and their dog is selling tracks. So right now they might be a little bit expensive, but I expect that, aside from tariffs and all the stupidity going on, aside from that, I expect the price of tracks with so much competition in that business to maybe go down, and maybe we could find a better set of tracks, because again, these do pop off occasionally still, and maybe I need to just retension them, although that doesn't feel terrible to me. So I'm not sure, but again, I want to replace all those bolts on those drive motors just because they got a little bit beat up from, I'm going to tell you, they were half a turn. I don't know that they were a turn loose, just that little bit, and they were not, but maybe they stripped them putting them in too, so I don't know. Anyhow, guys, True Grit Scott, I hope this helped somebody, gave you a little bit of information. If I'm wrong about anything, like I said, I'm not an expert on these machines. This is just what I'm seeing and being able to turn a wrench, some of my thoughts. You guys be safe.